What's up everyone, welcome to this episode of the vlog from my tiny tropical garden. This week starts with me sinking the Colocasias into the place I finally decided for them to go. I'm so glad I kept them in pots while I made up my mind. These are the esculanta species, and once these roots have more room to grow, the leaves will get absolutely enormous and they have a fantastic tropical look. So I'm adding chicken pellets to the hole to add plenty of nitrogen to allow these leaves to grow away very well. I'm also going to move this orange flowering osteospermum. The colour is so bright it looks really tropical, but my wife pointed out that it's drawing attention to this broken pot. So we're going to push it back further into the garden. This is its new spot. In the central bed, with the new orange flower I'll show you in a moment, as well as the hedychium planted in front of it, which will be orange when it eventually comes into flower. And just look how right my wife was. You're not drawn to that broken pot anymore, you look beyond it and you start to venture around the rest of the garden. Teamwork makes the dream work. Now on to another new plant. This is Pseudopanax latius with these amazing palmate evergreen leaves. The leaves are looking a little nitrogen deficient and pale at the moment, so I'm just going to base dress the planting hole with some more of these nitrogen rich chicken poo pellets. This plant will get quite large, but I'm hoping it will form a nice canopy over where we lay in the hammock. This is one at Abbotsbury Gardens, who actually gifted me the plant I'm putting into my garden. This is a very mature specimen, and I'm hoping that once it grows in my garden, you'll be looking up to a canopy something like this while you're swaying gently in the hammock. A boy can dream, right? Talking of the hammock, I've bought a climbing plant to go up the pole that supports it. And yes, it's a rose. My wife loves roses and I'm slowly converting to them, and I was struggling to find one that would look good in a tropical garden. But this tequila cocktail looking Rosa Redova fits the job perfectly, and it will provide plenty of colour while all of the true tropical plants are just warming up. And at the top of the stream, the succulents are putting out really interesting looking flower spikes. It'll be interesting to see how these look because they didn't all flower last year. My Echevera is putting out really nice tall flower spikes, but the aphids love them, and as a result so do the ants. And the bluer-leaved sempervivums look great with their contrasting orange and yellow flowers. I'd really appreciate if any of you have got chemical-free tips for keeping the ants and aphids off of your succulent flowers. I would hose them off, but the flower stems are so delicate and I really don't want to damage them. And it's not just the succulents flowering along the edges of the stream. Our Santolina lemon fizz is also budding up really nicely. I didn't get to see the flowers on this plant last year because I cut it at the wrong time early in the summer. But this year I've decided to let it go wild, and I'll see what the flowers are like, and once it's finished flowering I'll cut it back into shape. But I really love the corally looking foliage. And the very first teeny tiny magenta pink creeping thyme flowers are starting to open from the mass of buds, and the pink of the creeping thyme sits really well against the giant purple flowers of the campanula. These plants are really starting to soften the edge of the stream, which was just built last year, so it's great that the concrete edges are disappearing. The climbing plants in our tiny tropical garden are doing well too, like this passion flower which is just sprawling up the fence, and it was cut right back to the soil this year. I do have to keep an eye on it though, as it tends to hold on to every plant around it, but if you look closely there are really exotic looking passion flower blooms already. And the other exotic climbing plant we've got is of course our grape, which is putting on quite a lot of growth, and I'm just going to let it sprawl up this cane and then I'll tie it into the wall when it reaches the final height. The Enseti banana is starting to fill out the bed very well. A little bit too well, and I might have to cut back some of the leaves that are just laying across the Magnolia grandiflora behind it. But I'll leave it as it is for now and let it fill out a tiny bit more. The Paulonia isn't disappointing with putting out lots of large leaves. One is just laying across the growing tip of the banana behind it. This Musa Bastu banana will grow very quickly because it's rained all week and now the weather is warming up, and I don't want to damage the growing tip anymore. So I'm just going to cut this one leaf off of the Paulownia tree. And that will give the banana leaves plenty of room to grow. Oh, and before I forget, those Persicaria root tip cuttings that I took last week have already put out so many roots, and they're growing away well just in the water, so I'll be potting these up very soon. So despite the fact it's been absolutely chucking it down for most of the week, I managed to get out and get a few bits sorted in the garden. At this point in the year, it's mostly just taming the jungle and waiting for things to grow. As always, if you've got any questions or tips, please comment below, and if you haven't already, hit subscribe. I'll see you all next week.